all these ways, like, I had a normal childhood. But when I reflect back on it, like, I actually didn't even have any memories of my childhood. Like, below the age of 12, I think, until I started doing hypnotherapy, I could probably tell you like 3 things I remembered.
Yeah. Today I'm back with my friend Eula, and today we're going to be talking about feeling depressed, but also feeling like you don't really have a reason to feel that way. So, I'm going to talk a bit from my own personal experience here just to make it a bit more relatable. But I went to therapy for 11 years without really knowing what was wrong with me. And it made me feel really bad. It made me feel like there was something just inherently wrong with me because other people around me, or just in general, seemed to have it so much worse than me. So I've almost felt guilty after a while because I felt like, well, I don't really have a reason to feel this way. So why do I still feel this way? And I think this is something that a lot of people are going to relate to. So hence the topic of today's episode. I'm here with Ula, my friend, and I'm going to give you a minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ula Makowska. I am a hypnotherapist. I'm trained in RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy. And as if you've maybe watched some of the other episodes, I've been here with Natalie speaking about a few different topics to do with mental health and the subconscious mind. And just like Natalie, I also relate a lot to this topic. I think we're very much on the same page on some of these issues with our own personal experiences. And I want to bring my own personal experiences combined with a view from a therapeutic view, a psychological view, and what's really going on here. Yeah, so thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Right, so you said that you relate to this too, feeling, not feeling great, but also not feeling why you feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it was slightly different to you because I would never say I was ever depressed. Maybe, some boxes from the depression scale would be ticked, but it was never really depression for me. It was more like a feeling of emptiness.
Yeah.
Like I just was not understood by anyone, or I didn't feel connected to anyone, or I actually didn't realize until many, many years later that I didn't even really have like an identity.
Yeah, same.
And that I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know what I liked, what my needs were. I didn't know how to authentically connect, like fake connection or like superficial connection, but not real connection.
When did you come to that conclusion that you didn't really have a personality, or that you...
Oh, yeah, like into my 20s.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't even that I didn't feel I had a personality. It was I didn't feel that I, I don't know, maybe it's a weird distinction, which kind of made sense in my mind. But yeah, it was very challenging for me to connect with others. And, there was just a feeling of emptiness, that nothing really felt right. Like everything just felt like not the way it looked for other people.
Yeah. No, I just asked that clarifying question because I just wanted people listening to get a really clear picture of what we felt like, so maybe they can relate on a deeper level. Yes, I already relate to what you said. I came to the conclusion of, I don't really know who I am, or my life is not really fulfilling me. Like, I play this role in so many situations, like in friendships and my family relationships and my romantic relationships, and then I completely burned out, and I came to the realization that this is not really the life I want. This is not really who I want to be, but at the same time, I also don't know who I do want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really complicated because, you know, I think the reason we wanted to talk about this today is because there was nothing wrong, like wrong. Like, it was just this deep feeling inside, like, that, like, I don't think, like, for me personally, I really felt like no one else feels like this. Like, I must be the only one who feels so distant and so disconnected. And, like, even I realized, that my partner that I'd been with and, like, said, I love you and all these things and living together. And I was like, oh, I don't even actually feel connected to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is really weird because, like, I loved him, but I didn't feel connected to him. And I couldn't really explain that. And I didn't even actually realize that I felt that way until I got invited to a breathwork ceremony on the topic of connection.
Okay.
And I actually wouldn't have gone, but my friend gifted it to me. If I'd have known the topic was connection, I'd be like, stupid. I don't want to go. But she gifted it to me, and it was really confronting because the first thing was like, think back to a time where you felt truly connected and share it with the group. And I went first because I was at the front of the circle and I had like nothing to say. And I picked some really trivial thing which just kind of came to my mind in panic because I didn't have anything really valuable to say. I was like, I literally couldn't think of a single moment. And that was kind of what started me on this realization, like, wow, I literally have never felt connected to anything. That's probably why I felt like so empty all those years, even though, like, I was doing all these things and like I was having fun, right? And I was enjoying my life, but I still felt empty. And it's a weird dichotomy and it's a weird thing to explain to someone. Like, how can you be living your best life and like enjoying your job and with a partner you love and still feel empty inside?
Great. Yeah, and that's what on the outside, it looks perfect, right? Or, well, maybe not perfect, but on the outside, it looks like you've got it all figured out.
It's normal.
Looks totally normal. Everything looks fine, right? It was the same for me. At one point, I was working my full-time job as a store manager. On the weekend, I was working extra shifts at a pizza place as a waitress. After my shift at the pizza place, I would go straight next door to the bar that my at the time boyfriend worked at, and we would drink with the other friends. And it was fun in a way. Like, I'd go home and be like, oh, I had a good day today. But on a deeper level, I was like, there was no sense of purpose. And looking back now, in a way, I mean, it was distraction. Yeah, but at the time, I didn't know I was distracting myself, let alone what I was distracting myself from.
I can talk a lot about that because as an RTT therapist, I did a lot of work on myself, in my training, like practicing on others and receiving sessions also in practice. And we worked on lots of different things, like different topics, whatever I could think of. And one thing that I never worked on was to do with partying and drinking and taking substances. And I did that a lot when I was younger. Like, I started partying when I was like 15. And I started very hard and went pretty much all the way through most of my 20s. And I just thought it was fun, going out, getting messed up, being out for like 3 days in a row, like, and not really getting sleep and doing all those things. I thought it was fun. And I was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm having fun. That's why I'm doing it every weekend. And then after my training and all these sessions I'd received, at a certain point, I was like, I don't want to drink. I don't want to, like, if someone offered me like a line of Coke, I'd say, I don't want it. Like, you could not pay me to take it. I really don't want it. I don't want to go out after midnight. I don't want to be out all night with people who are off their face and sweaty. Like, that is not fun. Like, and at that point I realized, like, maybe I was running from something, but it literally never occurred to me. And I did that for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And at the time, it just seemed like normal.
Yeah, same. For me, like I used to, aside from the drinking on the weekends, because I had a really strict childhood, I wasn't allowed to go out until I was 18. And even then, like it was difficult. So when I moved out, uh, and I don't remember how old I was exactly, but in my early 20s, I wanted to like catch up with my teenage years, right? So then I started going out, and still, like, I wouldn't say it was horrible, but I do definitely remember some drunk evenings, and I also discovered weed, which I really enjoyed smoking,
Yeah.
and it was just like you said, having fun. It seemed like I was having fun, and I do like genuinely had some good nights, but then looking back now, I wouldn't want to go back to that lifestyle where it was just every weekend. Um, because yeah, we were
Like literally erasing your consciousness, basically.
yeah,
Just getting as far away from who you are and how you feel as possible.
yeah,
So about some of those feelings, right? So if you're not sure if this is really applying to you, then maybe I think on a high level, some of the things that you might be experiencing is, disconnection, really not quite knowing who you are or feeling that you're not quite sure where you fit in, feeling misunderstood, feeling like you're maybe escaping or doing things like that. And the really important thing that we wanted to share about this episode is, for some people, they have experienced things that are really severe. Maybe, trigger warning. Maybe you had some like domestic violence. Maybe there was sexual assault. Maybe you were in an accident, right? Or could have been a lot of things, like serious things. And then when you hear people who've been through those things and you're like, okay, I understand why you're struggling. You had these big things happen to you. I didn't have any of that happen to me.
same.
Right? Like my parents fought a lot, like they yelled at each other, but there was no violence or anything. Like they didn't yell or hit me. Like I was never assaulted, you know, in all these ways. Like I had a normal childhood. But when I reflect back on it, like I actually didn't even have any memories of my childhood. Like below the age of 12, I think until I started doing hypnotherapy, I could probably tell you like 3 things I remembered,
Yeah,
like from my entire childhood. And that already is like the first red flag, right? That maybe something wasn't quite normal when you were growing up. And I think it's really important to differentiate here between 2 things. We have trauma, and this word is thrown around quite a lot these days, and which is important because it's been really ignored, right? Until now, like it's been kind of, yeah, I guess we weren't allowed to talk about it. It was a bit taboo.
yeah,
And, there is the trauma, of course, like the things I just said, domestic violence, family, like a parent dies, assault or abuse or whatever that thing is, maybe severe bullying. Those things are all trauma. But there's a lot of other things that can be trauma as well. And we have a different name for them, right? There's the big T, like the capital T trauma, and then you have like the little t trauma. So all those things before they're capital T, that's like the big stuff, right? But that's not the only thing that can impact you. So in our situation, there was a lot of little t trauma. And those can be things like parent forgets to pick you up, leaves you there in the rain. And back when we were kids, you didn't have a mobile phone, right? So if your parent forgot you, like they forgot you, you're just sitting there for hours. It can be things like no one, you didn't have any friends at school. It can be things like, your parents didn't listen to your feelings.
yeah. Tell you to just stop being so dramatic.
Yeah.
You're so sensitive.
Yeah.
Just leave you to deal with those feelings on your own.
Yeah, not having anyone to talk to, like that's a little t trauma.
Yeah.
Right? And, if you think about like if someone's in prison and the worst torture you can do to someone is put them in isolation, right? Where they don't have anyone to see or talk to. And they're just completely by themselves for 24 hours a day, right? And if your parents weren't available, or if they were working, like, say, 2 or 3 jobs because you were in, like, a poverty situation or whatever the thing was, like, you might have been in isolation. You might have been in the worst, kind of punishment that we can give a human, and that might have been your childhood, how you were raised, right? So
Yeah, the reason I'm like, oh, okay, wow, that really hits home, because especially the way you put it with, that's the worst, punishment for someone. That's what you do to you in prison. Yeah, this is going to be eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't even realize it until I was going through my sessions, and in my sessions, scene after scene, it was like, I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. Like, and I mean, like, at least 30 separate times where I had scenes where I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone. I'm an only child, right? Like, and my parents got divorced. So, like, yeah, I was alone all the time. I didn't really have friends, like, and I was bullied in school. So, most of the time I was in isolation. And, when you don't have someone there to regulate your nervous system with you, someone there to help you understand or manage your emotions, someone there to, like, see you, right? Like, if no one's there to reflect you as a child, how can you form an identity if you have no one to reflect off? You're just in the void.
Yeah, and you're literally just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So you're not really, your brain or your mind is not really worried about, creative expression in any way.
Yeah, definitely
Because
not.
it's focused on keeping you safe and alive.
Yeah, and if you're in that kind of situation, if you have a parent who's regulated and who's available, they're going to teach you healthy coping skills, right? And if you don't have that, you're not going to learn those healthy coping skills. So you're going to end up doing a lot of maladaptive things. And some of those things, like really obvious things like dissociating, like that's the reason I didn't have any memories.
Same.
Right? I look at like lists of movies and I'm like, I've seen that. And I literally don't remember a single thing about it when I rewatch it. I'm like, have I really seen this? Because I was literally dissociating the whole time.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't form a memory of it because you're not present and you're not conscious, so you can't have a memory of that thing.
That's happened so many times where people will be like, oh, have you seen this movie? And I'll be like, yeah, I know I've seen it, but I have no idea what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. And even as I'm rewatching it, I'm like,
I don't remember.
I don't remember any of this. Yeah, because you were dissociating.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I was bullied really heavily when I was 13, 14 years old. And I didn't even remember any of this until that burnout when I was 25. Like, that's when all the repressed trauma started coming back up. That's when the memory came back to me. And that's when I realized that day I came home from school, didn't get emotional support, wasn't helped to regulate my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I went to my bedroom and I just started scrolling through Tumblr and watching YouTube videos. And that was my childhood. That was my teenage years.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything because I spent all of it just as soon as I came home.
That's okay. Sorry, we just heard a sound, but I think it's fine. Keep going.
Okay. So yeah, as soon as I came home, I would just open my laptop and dissociate until I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really relate to what you said about not remembering things from your childhood and just dissociating.
Yeah.
Completely.
And then that leads on to the next thing that I was going to say. Another thing that is very common if you don't have these healthy coping skills is just doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you have a negative emotion, you feel it in your body, right? Your nervous system reacts to that feeling. And in a healthy coping strategy, you might be able to do something, maybe go for a walk, like a dance, sing, move, right? Get it out at the gym, whatever that thing is. Those are all movement based, but other things like journaling or talking to a friend, right? Or physical touch, like a hug or something from someone. Those are all healthy coping strategies. But if you just handle it by like, oh my God, I had the worst day, and I just get home, lie down on the sofa and just scroll on your phone, right? So that's another really maladaptive strategy. There's way more addictions, right? I'm having a mental blank. I'll get back to them. But those kinds of things are all signs that whether it was your parents really, intentionally doing something wrong, or whether it was just that they didn't have the ability to be better, that's a sign that you missed out on something that you really needed. And this is not trying to say there is something wrong with you. It's you needed something that wasn't available, and you weren't able to develop and form the skills that you need. And coping skills are skills, right? So you can learn them.
Yeah.
But if you haven't learned them as a child, you're going to go through life really with some of these poor habits, right? And especially if you have this feeling of, don't belong, can't connect, who am I, what do I want? You also have to go through a learning of the self, right? So on one hand, you're learning the skills. On the other hand, you're learning more about yourself. Who am I? What do I feel? What do I want? What do I want to do in my life? Like, do I have a purpose?
Yeah.
What could that purpose be? Right? And you can't really do any of those things while you're constantly in dissociation, while you're constantly in survival mode, while you're maybe still in denial about some things, right? And, everyone goes through denial at first. I was in denial until I kind of recognized it through the hypnotherapy. And it wasn't even conscious denial. It was just complete unconsciousness. I had no idea that it was like that until it kind of came to my consciousness that I remembered those things. I was like, oh, right. And once I knew that, I could do something about it. But I think a lot of people go through life just not really aware.
Yeah, or just thinking that, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
I think our society is really good at just bypassing that feeling, because I think it's a feeling a lot of people will relate to. And our society, like collectively, we just bypass it by saying things like, well, it is what it is.
And as you say that, it is what it is. I remember when I was younger, when I was a teenager, feeling something like, oh, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
I remember that often. And feeling like so helpless and hopeless about the world that like not even wanting to try, because I'd never had an experience that was better than that. It's like literally this is just as good as it gets, and that's it.
For me, it was more like like the not wanting to believe that this is all there is to life. But I also didn't know what else there was out there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, I didn't want to believe that, oh, this is all there is. But I didn't know where to start, especially as a teenager, like.
Yeah.
And that's when you start dissociating.
I mean, the dissociating is already there, right? Like it's so pervasive and it's so dangerous. And I think maybe it's worth mentioning at this point what all these things might indicate.
Yeah.
Right? And I touched on it before, like the big T versus the little t trauma. And maybe a term that people don't know about, or something that maybe you might have heard but maybe haven't really fully understood, right? When you have a big T trauma and that impacts you a lot, we have a term for that, and that's PTSD. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's a very specific set of experiences, right? So you might have flashbacks, visceral experiences, triggers that remind you, so maybe it's auditory or it's a scent like perfume or a visual stimulus that triggers that flashback, right?
Yeah.
And that happens with the big T traumas. But little T traumas actually lead to something else, and that's complex PTSD. CPTSD, right? And complex PTSD is a systematic pattern of traumatic experiences that build on top of another that really erode someone's ability to trust, to feel safe, to form an identity or an understanding of themselves, right? And that's really what we just discussed, right?
Yeah.
All those things. And a lot of people don't know what complex PTSD is, or they've never heard of it, and they don't even know it's a thing. But once you start to put it all together, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually a bit of an epidemic, I would say, because there's definitely way more people who have had like little T trauma than big T trauma, I would say.
Yeah, but it's not really talked about because, yeah, most people, when you've got small T trauma, compare ourselves to other people. Oh, well, my situation or what happened to me is not as bad as what happened to others.
Yeah.
Or, well, that person has it so much worse than me, so
Yeah.
I don't, I shouldn't feel this way. Or even at home, you might have heard things like, well, I'll give you something to cry about, or
Yeah.
you've got a roof over your head.
You think that's bad.
Yeah, exactly. Those kind of things. And those are, I'd say, almost normalized reactions to when you're having a reaction to a small T trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, and I think that's really common, and yeah, it's complicated, right? I'm sure every generation had it, but I have a feeling like our generation's like one of the first ones to really start to look at it and take it more seriously.
Yeah.
Because you also have to think like, all these things that we mentioned, like lack of identity, like lack of connection and belonging and all these things, when they happen when you're a little kid, you actually can't go through the regular developmental phases, right? So a regular brain is still developing into your 20s. You're not fully developed until you're, I think, like almost 25, I think, like brain-wise. So if you think like if you were a child and you had these regular experiences of neglect or isolation or whatever that thing was, you weren't able to hit your milestones. So there's actually even people here, and you walk around and you see it's like that's like a little child in an adult body. They are really immature.
Yeah.
Right? Because people haven't been able to hit those developmental milestones. They're unable to regulate their emotions. They're unable to even see their own patterns. And we treat people, we treat everyone like adults, as we all are, but we're not all adults inside. And even I see in myself, like, that I was so dysregulated and unstable. Some of the things that I was doing when I was younger were really crazy. Like, I was all over the place. And I never went to a psychologist or anything because in Australia it was too expensive for us. And, when I moved out, I was a student. I couldn't afford it, basically. And it wasn't really at that time a high priority for me. I was just so, just like not aware of how bad my situation was. And recently, when I moved here to the Netherlands, I was able to get like a screening done, and I got diagnosed with borderline personality. And I'm not like that anymore. I'm very different now. But when we did the test, everything was like, well, like, do you resonate with this or not? And I was like, definitely until my 20s, very much me. And for like all the questions, I'm like, no, not now, but very, very strongly in my 20s. So they diagnosed me with borderline. And, all these things were just a symptom, right? Like it was all connected. And I think that maybe ties in and maybe like wraps us up to a good point to leave on today, because I think we want to save some stuff for the second part of this
I
conversation.
just wanted to also touch on like the diagnoses, because you said you got diagnosed with by borderline. I went to therapy for the first time when I was 17, 18. I paid for it with the money that I made working at a bakery on the weekends, because I had already struggled with depression for a couple of years up until that point. But I just wanted to figure out what was wrong with me, right? And in between the ages of 18 and 25, I've been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, chronic depression, OCD, borderline, ADHD, and autism.
You're the full spectrum.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share that, and it's going to become a lot more clear in the next episode as well. But I think, yeah, this is definitely a good spot to leave it at. And we'll be explaining in the next episode.
Yeah, a little bit more about CPTSD.
How that all ties in together.
Yes, so stay tuned. I think it's going to be a really good one.
It's going to get juicy.